Now we are on chapter 24. Enoch has been going on a little tour of the supernatural realm, more specifically he's going to a lot of places in the underworld and even hell itself. And we continue with where we left off before. Let me make that just a little bit larger in case people can't quite read it. And we will proceed from here. First Enoch chapter 24. I, Enoch, I proceeded beyond the things that I had already seen. And I saw 7 glorious mountains, all differing each from the other, whose stones were precious in beauty. And all the mountains were precious and glorious and beautiful in appearance. 3 to the east that were firmly set, one on the other. 3 to the south, one on the other. And deep and rugged ravines, one not approaching the other. The 7th mountain was in the middle of these, and it rose above them in height like a seat of a throne, and fragrant trees encircled it. Among it was a tree such as I had never smelled, and among them was no other like it. It had a fragrance sweeter smelling than all spices, and its leaves and its blossom, and the tree never withered. Its fruit is beautiful like the dates of palm trees. So does anyone want to take a guess before we continue reading? Where is Enoch right now? And what is this tree that he is referring to? A what?
Paul.
It might be, possibly. Who's to say? I'm sorry?
Yep.
Yes, this place is designed to remind you of it. Yes.
Heaven.
Almost. I like your thinking, but no, not quite.
Very cool.
Yeah. This is, remember that for much of the past few chapters, Enoch has been in the underworld, and he still is. It's just that he's in the good part of Sheol, where those who are loyal to Yahweh are kept until the day that Jesus Christ sets them free. Now, this tree that he has seen that smells and looks so wonderful is the tree of life. You'll recall there was a tree of life in Eden, in Genesis chapter 3, but upon Adam and Eve's sin, they were cast out of the garden. They were no longer given access to the tree. But where else in the Bible, not in the teeth, where else in the Bible does the tree of life show up after Genesis 3? 5, 6, 7, 8.
The city of the New Jerusalem.
Yep. The new heavens and the new earth in Revelation chapters 21 and 22. We're given the vision of a tree of life whose leaves are for the healing of the nations. There's actually the next sermon that I'll be doing in the Book of Enoch has a lot of this Eden imagery. I'll be talking more about it then. But the beginning and the end of the Bible are connected to each other purposefully. A lot of the imagery that you see used to describe the new heavens and the new earth in the Book of Revelation are purposefully described in such a way as to make you think of it way back at the beginning. The tree of life is just the primary example. There are others. The idea is that at the end of history, after all has been said and done, Jesus Christ has rendered final judgment. God will dwell with his people for eternity in the new heavens and the new earth, which will be a renewed Garden of Eden, which will never again be corrupt. And so you can almost think of the entire story of the Bible as being this big U-shape that starts at Eden, comes down, and gets worse and worse and worse until Jesus Christ shows up. And then from there, the process begins to be reversed so that we will restore what was originally lost. And what the author of Enoch here is telling us is that in the in-between time, from Adam and Eve's fall in Genesis 3 until the new heavens and the new earth are completed, the tree was being kept in the underworld among those who are loyal to Yahweh. So there's where we get the idea that the good part of the underworld was not awful, like the rest of the underworld was, because these people, they were loyal to Yahweh. They were waiting for the redemption that came from Jesus Christ. And this good part of the underworld is described in paradisical terms that are quite similar to Eden and the new heavens. They had it, while they were waiting for Jesus Christ to redeem them, they had a foretaste of what was to come.
But not so bad hell.
Say that again?
And not so bad hell.
Yeah, it's not as bad as the rest of the underworld or hell itself. But we continue on. Enoch is about to tell us what this tree means. Then I said, how beautiful is this tree and fragrant, and its leaves are lovely, and its blossoms are lovely to look at. Then Michael, the archangel who's taken Enoch all these places, one of the holy angels who was with me and was their leader, he said to me, Enoch, why do you inquire, and why do you marvel about the fragrance of this tree? And why do you wish to learn the truth? Then I answered him and said, concerning all things I wish to know, but especially this tree. He answered, this high mountain that you saw, whose peak is like the throne of God, is the seat where the great Holy One, the Lord of glory, the King of eternity, will sit, when he descends to visit the earth in goodness. As for this fragrant tree, no flesh has the right to touch it until the great judgment, in which there will be vengeance on all and a consummation forever. Then it will be given to the righteous and the pious, and its fruit will be food for the chosen. It will be transplanted to the holy place by the house of God, the King of eternity. Then they will rejoice greatly and be glad. They will enter into the sanctuary. Its fragrances will be in their bones, and they will live a long life on the earth, such as your fathers lived also in their days. And torments and plagues and sufferings will not touch them. This all sounds very much like the Book of Revelation, doesn't it? Tears and crying and pain, they shall be no more. Then I blessed the God of glory, the King of eternity, who has prepared such things for people who are righteous, and has created them and promised to give these great things to them. So, any thoughts thereupon?
It reminds me of the white tree of Gondor, which was taken from a seedling of Nimloch in Numenor before it was destroyed.
I've mentioned this in previous weeks. I think part of what made both Lewis and Tolkien such brilliant authors was that they spent a lot of time reading ancient literature, not just the Bible, but ancient literature in general. And they noticed that there was a pattern to the way that ancient people thought, and they incorporated that mindset into the more modern stories that they wrote. And I think that's, can you make obvious connections to the Bible? Yes, Aslan is Jesus. The C.S. Lewis is being painfully clear so as to draw that parallel. But even there are connections that are a lot more subtle than that, such as the great tree of life and so forth that you find in a lot of cultures. And that's part of the reason why I think The Lord of the Rings is one of the better stories of the modern world. Certainly better than a lot of what's coming out of Hollywood right now. But if everyone else is satiated, we will continue on in chapter 26. Destiny and George, something else interesting about the book of First Enoch is that it has 108 chapters, but many of them are very short, so it's not as scary of a book as it might initially appear. Anyway, chapter 26. From there, I, Enoch, proceeded to the center of the earth, and I saw a blessed place where there were trees that had branches that abide and sprout. And there I saw a holy mountain. Beneath the mountain, water came from the east and flowed toward the south. And I saw to the east another mountain higher than that, and between them a deep valley with no breadth, and through it water was flowing beneath the mountain. And to the west of this, another mountain lower than it, and not rising very high. A deep and dry valley beneath it, between them and another deep and dry valley at the apex of 3 mountains. And all of the valleys of hard rock were of hard, deep and of hard rock, and no tree was planted in them. Now, how many of you could draw that on a map if you had to? Was that a confusing description? He is continuing to describe what he is seeing, and it seems, nearest as we can tell, that he has now moved on to the unnice part of the underworld, or he may possibly. What's that?
Lots of mountains.
Yes, lots of mountains. And that ties it. Ancient people believed that at the center of the earth was some kind of rugged mountainous terrain, like the Sahara Desert, but dark because the sun doesn't shine. And that ties into this idea that they believed that the mountains on the earth's surface, they had roots stretching all the way down to the core of the earth. Jonah, for example, he offers his prayer in Jonah chapter 2. He said, I descended to the roots of the mountains. That's another way of describing the underworld. He died in the fish. He was in the underworld for 3 days. And one of the descriptions he uses to describe that is, I was at the root of the mountains. And so in that particular framework, you would expect the underworld to be quite rugged in its terrain. So, yeah, you're going to see a lot of mountains. Let's see. And I marveled at the mountain, marveled at the valley. I marveled exceedingly. And I said, why is this land blessed and all filled with trees, but this valley is cursed? So he's seeing a good place and a bad place. Then Sariel, another one of the angels who was taking him on his little tour, he answered, and he said to me, this cursed valley is for those who are cursed forever. Here will be gathered all the cursed who utter with their mouth an improper word against the Lord and speak hard things against his glory. Here they will be gathered, and here will be their habitation at the last times, in the days of righteous judgment, in the presence of the righteous for all time. Here the godless will bless the Lord of glory, the King of eternity. In the days of their judgment they will bless in mercy, in accordance with how he has apportioned to them. Then I blessed the Lord of glory, and his glory I made known and praised magnificently. So, up until this point, there's been a lot of this kind of talk, a lot of this two ways theology that says blessings for the righteous, cursings for the wicked. It seems to be a major theme that the writer wants to focus on a lot. Why might that be?
What was the question?
Why do you think, and you guys are exempt from this question because you weren't here when I talked about the historical background of First Enoch. But the question is, why is the author focusing so heavily on this idea of blessings for the righteous, cursings for the wicked? He's talking about it a lot more than you might see in most of the Bible, except maybe the Book of Proverbs. Why might he be focusing on this?
Didn't you say there's like martyrs when that can come from different classes or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe the amount of righteousness or unrighteousness you do gets you to like certain levels. Maybe.
It's, I mean, yes, there are those questions to be asked about the nature of the afterlife, true enough. But the reason that the author is bringing all of these things up, it likely has to do with the historical circumstances in which the author of Enoch is living. So, those of you who have been here since the first lesson, the book was most likely written about 200 to 300 years before Jesus, and during that period, that general period in time, the last couple of centuries leading up to the New Testament, was a time of great turmoil for the Jewish people. because for most of that period, they were not an independent, sovereign nation. They couldn't make their own decisions. They were always living under the iron fist of either the Greeks or then later the Romans. And to make matters worse, the Jews also believed that they were not done with exile yet. God had exiled them from the land 500 years earlier at the hands of the Babylonians. And even though that was 500 years in the past, a lot of Jews still believed that they were living in exile to some extent, because not all of them had been allowed to return home to Israel yet. There were a lot of them who were still scattered all across the world. And so the author of Enoch, he's living in a time where a lot of people are greatly distressed. They think God has abandoned us. The prophetic voice has ceased. No more scripture is being spoken. Lots of our people are scattered all across the Roman Empire, and we're living under their fist, which is an indication that we are not truly free. God is not, our relationship with God is not where it should be. It's not where it's supposed to be. So you've got a lot of people wondering, where is God in all of this? And the author of Enoch, I think, is writing a lot of this stuff as a way of giving hope to those who are still faithful to God. That's one of the primary purposes of apocalyptic prophecy, which is what a lot of this book is. The fundamental purpose is to give encouragement to those who are suffering and to say, continue on, fight the good fight, because the end of this story is a good thing. Those who have rebelled against Yahweh, those who are bringing suffering and punishment upon us, they will suffer the punishment that is rightfully due to them. And we, because we have not bowed the knee to Caesar, because we are being faithful to God, he will be faithful to us in turn. And this is what we have to look forward to at the end of the story. And that kind of hope is something that is going to get the people through this difficult period of time. We were actually talking about this at small group last night. How many of us, and you guys, you feel free to raise your hands on this, how many of you only pray to God when something really bad has happened and you want out of it? I will say that my prayer life greatly increases when something bad has happened. And that's human nature. When things are going wrong, when the situation is desperate, when we don't know how we're going to get out of this mess, it is within our nature to turn to God and recognize we needed him all along, but we especially need him now. And I would make the argument that that's what the book of First Enoch, or at least this first portion of it, that is what this book is largely about, is giving hope to people who are feeling very hopeless. And so too, these words can comfort us in our most difficult hours as well. Going on to chapter 28. From there, I went to the midst of the mountain range of the desert, and I saw it desolate, and it alone was full of trees and plants. Water was pouring forth from above, flowing like a copious watercourse approximately to the northwest. It brought water and also dew from all around. What's up, dude? And from there, I went to another place in the desert, and I departed to the east of this mountain. I saw trees of the field breathing fragrances of frankincense and myrrh, and their trees were like nut trees. Beyond these, I departed far to the east, and I saw another vast place, valleys of water, in which there were aromatic cane like reeds. And on the banks of these valleys, I saw the fragrant cinnamon. All of this is flowery garden imagery that's designed to make you think of Eden. This is a happy place. This is where you want to be. Chapter 31, beyond these valleys, I departed to the east, and I saw other mountains, and also on them I saw trees, from which flowed the nectar called storax and almond. Beyond these trees I was shown another mountain, and on it were aloe trees. All the trees were full of, and then here the textual record breaks, we don't know what they were full of. And it was like the bark of the almond tree. When they grind this bark, it is sweeter than any perfume. Beyond these mountains, approximately to their northeastern side, I saw other mountains filled with choice nard and TSPR. That's the spelling of the word in Aramaic, but they're not sure what it means. So it's filled with choice nard and something, and cardamom and pepper. From there I proceeded to the east of all these mountains, far from them to the east of the earth. And I passed over to the Red Sea, and departed far from it. I crossed over the darkness, far from that. I passed by the paradise of righteousness, and I saw from afar trees more plentiful and larger than these, differing from those, very large and beautiful, glorious and magnificent. And the tree of wisdom, whose fruit the holy ones eat, and learn great wisdom. That tree is in height like the fir, and its leaves like those of the carob, and its fruit like the clusters of the vine. Very cheerful, and its fragrance penetrates far beyond measure. Then I said, how beautiful is this tree, how pleasing in appearance. Then Gabriel said, the holy angel who was with me, this is the tree of wisdom from which your father of old and your mother of old, who were before you, ate and learned wisdom. And their eyes were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they were driven from the garden. So what is this tree that he has just seen? He previously saw the tree of life. What's he looking at now?
Tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Decent. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or as Enoch is called it, the tree of wisdom. Now, notice the fact that, where was it? He's describing a tree whose fruit holy ones eat and learn great wisdom from. So, the holy ones. In the Old Testament, that mostly refers to angelic beings, loyal members of the divine council. However, fast forward into the New Testament, that title of holy ones gets applied to human beings as well. So, any of the books of the New Testament where Paul calls people saints, that's the same word as this holy ones idea. And the idea being that we are counted among God's family and we are given a place of high esteem in the heavenly council. Now, this is interesting, isn't it? That the holy ones, angelic figures of some kind, they are being allowed to eat from the tree of wisdom. But when Adam and Eve did it, it was counted as something wrong. Why is that? Why was it wrong for Adam and Eve to do it, but not for these holy ones, and presumably for us as well?
And Adam and Eve were told not to.
Precisely, that's the key difference, is that God specifically told Adam and Eve, don't do this. You can have all of the trees in the garden, and who knows how many trees and what kind of fruit. It was wonderful and beautiful beyond description. That's all that we can say for certain. And they had access to all of this over here. And God just said, there's only one that I don't want you to eat from. It's that one. What did they do? They went and they ate from that. It wasn't the actual eating of the fruit that was the problem. It was the disobedient hearts of Adam that really started the problem of Genesis 3 and everything else that came thereafter. God told them, don't do this, and they disobeyed God.
Why do you think that it mentions the Red Sea there?
That is an excellent question. It could be one of a couple different things because the text doesn't give us enough details to say for sure one way or the other. It could either be that Enoch is just being flung all over the place. He, as we've seen over the past 15 chapters or so. He's going from one place to another, and then I went here, and then I went there. He's getting whiplash. And it could very well be the case that as he's visiting these various places, not just in the underworld, but he also saw hell a couple of times. And he, at the very beginning of his journey, he was in God's throne room. He's just being thrown all over the place. And it may be the case that as he's traveling along, he is within the unseen realm. He is quite literally traveling over the area that in the natural realm we would call Great Sea. Or it could be the case that he is flying over a river within the supernatural realm that reminds him of the Dead Sea, so that's what he's calling it. And we don't know for sure one way or another, but in one form or another, he is being given a glimpse of that. Good question. There's a lot about the Book of Enoch that is very weird and hard to figure out. And that partly has to do with the genre of it. So I mentioned much of First Enoch is what would technically be referred to as apocalyptic literature, which by design uses heavy amounts of symbolism, imagery, and metaphor that at times can be really hard to figure out. That's why the Book of Revelation is so weird to read. And the authors of Scripture write according to conventions that are very different from how we would write. And it just, sometimes we can try and try and try. We can try as hard as we are able to. And still, we'll figure out some of the symbols of apocalyptic, but some of them, you just have to shrug your hands and say, the text says this, but maybe the answer is this, maybe the answer is that. It's hard to say. Yes?
It's kind of like in Revelation, I forgot which one it was. Maybe it was somebody was having a vision of the future kingdom. And something they described, it was like something they described, they saw was a scorpion, a giant scorpion with like wings. It was like firing something. So we made theory. That could have been a helicopter, but because they had no idea what that was, they described that as a scorpion.
Right.
Yeah.
Ultimately, if it can be figured out, it is very hard to figure out. And that is by design. John is not intending to be obtuse. He's not writing weird stuff for the sake of writing weird stuff. He is struggling to communicate, seeing things within the unseen realm that are difficult to describe to everybody else who hasn't been there. The analogy I've used the past few weeks is imagine trying to describe colors to someone born blind. It's fundamentally outside of their experience, so you can only describe it so far before they can't comprehend. This section ends at chapter 36, and I think we have just enough time we might be able. Let's see. Chapter 33. From there I proceeded to the ends of the earth, and I saw there great beasts, and they differed each from the other. And birds also, differing in their appearance, their beauty and voices, they all differed each one from the other. To the east of these beasts I saw the ends of the earth, on which the heaven rests, and the gates of heaven opened. I saw how the stars of heaven come forth, and I counted the gates from which they emerge. And I wrote down all their elements, one by one, according to their number and their names, according to their conjunction and position and their time and their months, as Uriel, the holy angel with me, showed me. He showed me and wrote down for me everything, and also he wrote down their names, their appointed times, and their functions. So a note that I had made here in chapter 33 is this is a more subtle example, but I think this chapter is another reason why we can say that First Enoch is not scripture. Because the author's not coming out and saying it very plainly, but the flavor of what he's saying here is, I have acquired secret knowledge. I've been to God's throne room, and his angels have told me secret things that no one else is allowed to. And that is, that idea, that attitude was actually common in ancient religions. There were lots of them that had a specific branch called mystery religion. Obviously not a very creative name. But it's interesting. You can go into ancient Greek paganism, Roman, Egyptian, I think Mesopotamian. Modern Islam has this too. I mean, it's all over the place, where you'll have, like, here's this religion as a whole. And then here's this little section off to the side. These people are obsessed with finding out the secrets of the universe that human beings normally can't learn. And so they'll talk a lot about how I spoke to the gods, and they came to me, and they told me secret things that I can only give to a select few people. And if you pay me $500, I'll let you in on the secret. It's very strange how frequent that attitude is across time and geography in the course of all religions. And Judaism and Christianity have had their own version of mystery religions over the course of time as well. And I think the author of First Enoch in this place, he's tipping his cards a little bit. He's giving us a little hint that he's motivated by that kind of thought process that says, I'm superior to everybody else because I know stuff. And that kind of pride and arrogance in the human spirit is not, I would say that doesn't have a place in Scripture, because that sort of prideful human attitude is fundamentally sinful. So this isn't as obvious of a give as the giants that are 4,500 feet tall, or human women turning into sirens when they die. It's not as blatantly obvious as that. But I do think here we still have another hint, another clue that this book is not Scripture, because it's claiming to impart secret, hidden wisdom to all of you plebeian rubes. It is a fascinating thing for sure. But then, the last couple of chapters, we have a summary. Chapter 34. From there I proceeded to the north, at the ends of the earth. And there I saw great and glorious wonders at the ends of the whole earth. There I saw 3 gates of heaven open. From them the winds in the north emerge. When they blow, there is cold and hail and hoarfrost and snow, dew and rain. Through one gate they blow for good. And when they blow through 2 of the gates, they blow with violence. And there is affliction upon the earth. From there I proceeded to the west, and at the ends of the earth, and I saw there 3 gates of heaven open. And I saw in the east, as I saw in the east, the same number of gates and inhabitants. From there I proceeded toward the south, at the ends of the earth, and there I saw 3 gates of heaven open. From there the south wind and dew and rain emerge. You're getting this idea that he's being shown the secrets of earthly weather. It ties into that idea I was just talking about. The technical term that people will use in the Christian context is Gnostic. So this is a very Gnostic thought process. From there I proceeded to the east at the ends of the earth, and I saw 3 gates of heaven. I think I already read this paragraph, but I will. Open toward the east, and above them small gates. Through each of these small gates pass the stars of heaven, and they proceed westward on the path that is shown them. And when I saw, I blessed, and I shall always bless the Lord of glory, who has wrought great and glorious wonders, to show his great deeds to his angels and the spirits of human beings, so that they might see the work of his might, and glorify the deeds of his hands, and bless him forever. So that concludes the first major section of the book of First Enoch, the book of Giants. And then next time, starting in chapter 37, we'll enter the next major section of First Enoch, the book of parables. fun stuff. Any thoughts or questions about anything we've read before I ask for prayer requests? It's a lot of weird stuff. But it's a good weird.
It's interesting how they had traditions back then that we have nowadays, and sometimes we think that we are the ones that.
Yeah, it is true. All right, prayer requests. I had already mentioned the Williamsons and their